Hey, everybody, welcome to the Tex-Mex Podcast. We're your hosts, Eric and Mando, and this is episode 50. We're bringing you the top stories in Bitcoin, tech, and wealth so you too can help others get their start in life. Today, we've got a special guest. We're talking with Raul Lomelí Azubel. He is a co-founder and chief community officer of Welcome Tech. It's a platform that empowers immigrant households. He's formerly the VP of diverse growth segments at Wells Fargo. He's led initiatives like Latino Education, Achievement Project, and work with Mexican Consulate in LA. Raul has authored a financial aid book with over 50 articles and 18 booklets on financial services, healthcare, and education, with over 9 million copies distributed. Welcome, Raul. We're glad to have you on the pod, and we're interested to hear about your platform, your story, how you got into tech, different areas. Welcome.
Muchas gracias, muchas gracias.
I do have a question, Raul.
Sí.
Your last name. I get the Raul Lomelí, but tell me the other fraction of your name.
Yes, the Azubel. You know, this is why sometimes my buddies from elementary school to high school can't find me because they don't know me with the Azubel. Actually, when I got married to my wife, she was already a successful attorney. And, you know, I said, like, this is so backwards. Why should I make you change your last name? So instead, you know, the Azubel was important. So I added it to my last name. And she's still Noemi Sofia Azubel only. So that's where the Azubel comes from. She's from Uruguay.
Uruguay. I did have something with my wife. My wife is from America. And my friends is like, Mando, why you don't change it to her? It's like, yeah, it doesn't sound bad, right? Because my full name is Eric Armando Gomez. So, and then hence Mando. And basically, my wife, her last name is McNeil. So they were saying you can say Mando McNeil.
It does have a nice ring to it. Yes.
So you know what? It's like you see me and I look like a Gomez.
It's like, yeah. McNeil is Irish, no?
It's an Irish, Scottish.
Well, you know, the Irish are the Chicanos from Europe.
Oh, there you go.
True.
You know that?
I guess.
It's true story. Look, they are next to a superpower, right? Which is England. They're Catholic. They're big families. They're all about, working the fields, hardworking community. And during the Mexican-American War of 1846, they were so frustrated by being a segregated artillery of the U.S. Army that they actually shifted sides and fought for the Mexican side, and that's why you have El Batallón de los Patricios, and they actually settled in northern Mexico. So there you go. McNeil could be just as important as Gomez.
We're building a case here for you, Mando.
It's never too late, right? Cool. All right, let's jump in. When we were trying to understand, tell us a little bit of your platform, right?
Yes.
How you came to this idea, and I think that you have a partner,
yes.
Amir. Tell us a little bit the story on how you met Amir and how you guys start building this platform.
Look, if there's something that I can share with young entrepreneurs is that the moment that you stop innovating is the moment that your company starts dying. So we started 20 plus years ago with the idea to literally just educate community on a basic topic. At the time was how to open a bank account, because it was for the first time that the matrícula consular, which is an identification issued by the Mexican consulates in the US, could be used as a primary form of identification. So that's where the idea started. I was the press attaché, the spokesperson for the Mexican consulate in LA, and we made the announcement. And to be very honest with you, Mando, we didn't expect much from it. And the next day, oh my gosh, tens of thousands of people going throughout the country to the Mexican consulate to get their matricula to open an account. Why? Because our community wanted to have one. They just couldn't access. So that's how it started. We started just printing a very basic guide on how to open a bank account. We got the banks to sponsor it. We distributed it for free. And from there, 20 years later, we're still at it.
Nice. So, and then in what moment did you met Amir?
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's That's a very good question because when I decided to leave the Mexican consulate to actually engage in what is now Saberes Poder and Welcome Tech, it started as a nonprofit. And we met this, he's a few years younger than me, but just incredible business person, also son of immigrants. And he came and joined the group to help us raise funds for this initiative. It was so successful that the IRS actually said, hey, you're a nonprofit. You cannot be promoting opening bank accounts. I said, but why not? We're not getting any benefit out of it. They said, no, we're not telling you to stop. We're telling you that you need to take it out of the nonprofit. So the board allowed us to have a spin-off, and that's when Saber es Poder was created. So the first entity that my business partner and I created was Saber es Poder LLC, which was to educate the Mexican community, specifically through the then 46 Mexican consulates back in 2003, 2004, which then evolved to raising our first round of capital in 2010. And well, I'm sure we'll talk more about it, but that's how it started, and we've been business partners ever since. I say that I'm a man of commitments. I've been married to my wife for 25 years, and my business partners for 22. So there you go.
For the audience, Saber es Poder, some people might not know Spanish. It means yes. Knowledge is power, which it resonates a lot with me. I feel that sometimes when you don't have the education, sometimes people take advantage on you, right? So, and I think that in this case, it's kind of cool that you guys name it that way, knowing that immigrants, they need that help.
Definitely. It's also one of the big reasons why we started the pod, is because we want to build a platform also, or a community where we share information, we share ideas. So we're all about that. Saber es Poder is very important to our community. So we really dig that name. It's really good.
Thank you. I wish, it was easier to pronounce in English, which is not, and that was what led us to create a holding company, and the holding company is Welcome Tech. That way our investors and our non-Spanish speaking audience will be able to identify with it, because Saber es Poder evolving to many different variations of Saber es Poder to Sabor es Pavor to you name it, everything under the sky.
Totally get that too. That's how we ended up on TechMex podcast too, with our name. So it's like, that's easy to pronounce. Everyone gets it. Everyone knows it. Totally get that too.
Sometimes, Eric, you mispronounce.
I know. Hey, well, Tex-Mex. I don't know.
Let's dive into some of the services that you guys provide. Guide us through who is your kind of the people that you guys are helping, and who will want to know more about your platform.
Sure. Well, Mando, first let's talk about Latinos in the U.S. Right? There's give or take 65 million. And out of the 65 million, 20 million are foreign born. 20 million are immigrants. Those immigrants came at different stages in their lives. Out of these 20 millions, of course, the largest population is from Mexico. It's 12 million out of those 20 million. Out of those 12 million Mexican nationals, 3.3 million are permanent residents. 2.7 million have are already naturalized. They're U.S. citizens. You have about 600,000 to 700,000 dreamers. And then your delta of that number, that's your undocumented population. And I say this just because so many times, because it happens to be that there's also between 11 and 12 million undocumented immigrants in the U.S., that they confuse that to be all Mexicans, right? They say, well, if there's 11, 12 million Mexicans and there's 11, 12 million undocumented immigrants, they gotta be it.
Well, remember, it's like everything that is south.
It's all Mexico.
It's Mexico.
It's Mexico.
Yes. So our core is not to get into the politics of it. It's all about education. We know that our user base, our consumer, our members, we want to make sure that they're better informed, confident, and active participants in U.S. society, but in practical topics, financial services, access to healthcare, telecommunication, how to navigate U.S. systems. Those are the main big topics, because our community, they want to do right by the government, right by the country where they live. And that's why they pay so much in taxes. Undocumented immigrants ends up paying more in taxes on a per capita basis than someone that is here naturalized, U.S. born, or on a visa. And that is a fact.
If you can explain a little bit more, that's an interesting thing that I have not heard before. Why you mentioned that? Yeah.
When someone is undocumented and they're part of the formal economy, they need to rely on a social security number that obviously is not theirs, which means that SSA, which was created in 1937, it collects that percentage of your income into a retirement fund. If the social security number and the number does not match, it goes to the special fund. If the social security number exists but is used by multiple people, it goes into a special fund. So guess what? Every year, about $20 billion of this tax dollars for retirement goes into this program. They'll never have access to it. They cannot validate that. So what is happening is that over the years, this undocumented population is actually subsidizing all those Americanos, expats living in Mexico, getting their Social Security check in Chapala or Mexico City. Another fact.
Yeah. I mean, there is even Guanajuato, right?
Yes, San Miguel de Allende.
Yep. So there's a lot of expats there.
Yes.
Okay. So then your company is providing or helping these immigrants to be able to have, and how they are doing it, through a service, through a mobile app, or how are they doing it?
So we have a closed circuit television network, educational, that is installed since 2008 inside all of the Mexican consulates in the U.S. There are now 52 Mexican consulates, 11 in California, 10 in Texas, and so forth. So while they're there, they're able to begin to receive education on these topics that I just mentioned. While we're educating them, we populate a QR code and also through a little stripe at the bottom, how to opt in, which we have our short code is 72237, which is Saber, 72237. So when they send in that keyword, we capture their intention to be part of our platform. Mm-hmm. Since then, we've grown to over 4.3 million registered users. We actually exchange over 2 million SMS messages per week with them, back and forth. And why I say that? Because most of our community, at least the community that we serve, sure, they have a smartphone, sure, they have their social media, but they prefer to communicate one-on-one. And we do that via SMS. And of course, we use very rudimentary, but very basic, but very safe AI as well to make sure that we are able to identify what type of questions they're asking. So to your question, the top layer is free. They can ask any questions they like. We're going to respond within 24 hours. We're going to be able to start building trust and making sure that we understand what their needs are. If they wish, it's not a requirement, then they can actually enroll into a subscription health savings program. And that's where the monetization happens to allow us to try to create a sustainable model. Up until now, we're still not there. That's why we rely on venture capital from social enterprises to support a social startup to continue to grow. So that's how they go through that funnel. Free layer of education, and if they would like, then they can actually pay a monthly subscription that gives them access to unlimited telehealth, to unlimited visits to a whole array of library information on the different topics on health and health prevention.
So basically, your distribution has been through the consulates. Like the majority of the people they find about you guys is through the consulates.
It did start that way. And now, of course, our community, word of mouth, is incredible. So out of the 4.3 million, I would say about 1.3, 1.4 million came through the consulate directly. And the rest, it's been word of mouth from our current members.
Cool. When I was looking, and this is kind of the interesting things, and you mentioned it before, that because I was trying to figure out if this is a non-profit organization, and you kind of explain us that you have to do the spin-off, but also you mentioned about the this type of a company. I have never heard before.
Yes.
Which is B Corporation.
That's correct. We're a for-benefit corporation.
Could you
We
expand a little
still
bit on that? Yeah.
Absolutely, Mando. So for people interested on this, they can go to B as benefit, bcorporation.net. There, B Labs is the nonprofit that does the certification for those social enterprises that would like to go through the rigorous process to ensure that a third party is telling them, yeah, you are doing what you say you're doing, because there's so much fraud out there, especially in our communities. So we wanted to make sure that we went through that rigorous process. And by doing that, you're able then to amend your bylaws to ensure that within your bylaws, you are rising the importance of community, rising the importance of your team, rising the importance of the environment to equal place to shareholder returns. So out there, we have now over 3,000 social enterprises that have gone through the accreditation, and we took the additional step to actually go in and register as a for-benefit corporation in the state of Delaware.
We have been thinking as well, Eric and me, to
Mm-hmm.
to do a nonprofit, right? So, but yeah, it's one of those things that we in the future we will double. Cool. It's very interesting
Mm-hmm.
how you guys are helping the community. There's a lot of scams, right? And how do you guys are able to resolve that? Because you have a platform, and I feel that a lot of our community is being targeted. Because to be honest, sometimes we don't have the education, and that's kind of helping to be prey, and they feel afraid too, because in some point, some people, they are immigrants and they are not legal in the country.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, and I feel that that's actually a problem, right? So I have here stories where people actually they're scamming them in even saying immigration services, which is not right. What are the things that you guys have seen on the platform that they are taking abuse, and how you guys are helping to combat that?
Yes, look, there's a lot of issues, predatory nature in the country, and I still don't understand how the government cannot get their hands around it to ensure that good practices are promoted and that bad practices are not. I mean, all of us get all these texts all the time, right? And you're thinking like, how is it the government cannot stop this or all the phone calls, right? Bottom line is that we try to ensure that the household, whether they're documented or not, have equal access within Saberes Poder. We sometimes, as community, think like, well, yes, there's 11 million undocumented immigrants in the United States, and they must be all together. No, they're not. We live in mixed status households. So we try to make sure that access to bank accounts, access to healthcare, access to technology, that does not require a social security number, so that everyone has equal access to them. And if we combine a solution with education, then we're empowering our community. We go to so basic topics, Mando, like, for example, if they're setting up a basic visit with their doctor, we actually share with them the type of questions that they should be asking them, right? So that they're not subservient to whatever the doctor's going to tell them, right? What did you find? When should I come back? These have been my symptoms. How do you approach a patient-doctor relationship? Like, we do the same thing with opening a bank account. These are the different questions that you should be asking. What are the fees? What are the hidden fees? When you're sending remittances, these are the things that by law they are supposed to provide to you. You need to know how much pesos, or if you're in El Salvador, maybe they're gonna get it in cryptocurrency, right? They're not doing all of that. What is the education? Because we know that our community, it's very wise, right? So if we just share the information, we're not telling them what to do. That would be, I think, pathetic attempt to think that we know better than they do. But if we provide information, then, like the scripture, I'm not a very religious man, but there was this component of scripture that I always loved, which said that, knowledge can be learned, but wisdom is God given. Well, our community is very wise, very, very wise.
And I think that because sometimes they have to learn to discern themselves, and I think that's where you're coming from. That as long as you're presenting the information, they can make an informed decision and they can take action on whatever they need. What's your take, Eric, on the, because we mentioned this week, we actually, something came up, we are in Texas with the governor, right? And you're in health, Eric, so that's the reason why I'm asking you what is your take? What Greg Abbott is thinking?
Yeah, so for those that haven't heard, Greg Abbott out of Texas, the Texas governor, is planning an order to require that Texas public hospitals collect patients' immigration status. Now, the headline in itself, it seems like, wait, I mean, that could scare a lot of people from getting health services and things like that. They'll avoid getting attention for medical issues, which, of course, Latinos, there's a lot of different medical issues that have cropped up for Latinos. This is, in general, doesn't seem like a good sign. I think what we've seen, though, is that Greg Abbott is trying to say that this is going to be a way for Texas to request federal reimbursement for, having to help undocumented immigrants that are here in the state. So there's these types of headlines that come across a lot. There's a lot of politics involved in that. But how do you see, Raul, what are the main issues or what are the main problems that you're trying to solve for immigrants, whether they're undocumented or not?
We started this podcast, we really don't get much into politics. We just try to solve issues, solve societal problems. I'm more pragmatic when it comes to that. I think that this could backfire and it would actually be far more expensive for the state, because if an undocumented worker or someone who has an undocumented family member begins to prevent what would be just a routine checkup or a routine access to a medic, and now suddenly they're not going because they're concerned, what's going to happen is that now emergency rooms are going to see an increase, because when it's a life or death situation, they're going to have to serve them. And at that point, that's when it's going to become very expensive for the country and for the state and for the county and for the city. So bottom line is how do we educate? At Saberes Poder, we began to educate them the difference between emergency room and urgent care. We began to educate to them to understand that if you go to the emergency room, it really should be a life or death situation. If it's something that can be solved by a visit to the urgent care, and now they know, and guess what? Now they don't go to the emergency room, which reduces the cost to the taxpayer. So I would tell, to Governor Abbott, unfortunately, he has underneath him his lieutenant governor, and don't get me going with the other people. They're so far to the right that as a politician, he needs to move himself further to the right so that he can continue to be a successful politician. It is unfortunate, but that's the reality of politics.
Right. And so you mentioned that, one of the biggest issues that your platform wants to solve is the health aspect. We do know that if you push off those medical visits, things do get worse. And I think that's what you're alluding to when, you say, he could be kind of making things worse in that regard. What other things? Yes. I know you mentioned a lot about bank services. What around the bank services do you see that are is the main problems or issues that a lot of immigrants have?
The biggest challenge with banking in the United States is that, most major banks understood the importance of opening a savings and checking account for all. And so back in 2001, that's when it was announced first by Wells Fargo, actually out of Austin, Texas. It started with a program for the police department called Amigos en Azul, where they would go into communities in jerseys, in polos, not in uniforms, to tell them, hey, we're here to fight crime. We're not federal authority to do any type of immigration. And they began to see them as friends, as allies. And what happened in Austin is that crime rates in communities of color, in communities with high percentage of undocumented residents, dropped, because now they were very comfortable picking up the phone and calling the police to denounce an actual crime, an actual criminal activity. But then they said, oh my gosh, you're keeping all your money true, right? Abajo del colchón, right? Under the mattress. So that's when the police department went to several banks, spoke to Wells Fargo, and then Wells Fargo said, well, what we could do, let's go to the Mexican consulate. So that's in 2001, that's when the first program came to be to open bank accounts using a matrícula consular, a Mexican issued ID, and then the rest is history. The announcement was made on November 11, 2001 in LA for all of Wells Fargo's in the then 23 states to do it. And immediately after that, Bank of America followed. And then the Washington Mutual is no longer a bank. Chase came along, you name it, Citi came along. So in terms of banking, to your question, the issue, the challenge is that, yes, They're opening bank accounts for checking and savings, but no access to credit, no access to mortgages, right? No access to health, life insurance. So you begin to see that, they're not given the tools that make this country great, right? You have to have a financial handshake, and that is determined by your credit score. And if you're not able to have a credit card to build it, you begin to have the same issues, having to pay bigger deposits when they're renting homes, not being able to buy homes because of the difficulty to do it, even though these are hard-working people with working capital, working in a cash economy. We need to do better.
So then what is is there a right now solution on right now you guys are trying to build those solutions?
Yes. So look, the solution, we thought it was going to be through fintech, right? You begin to see ourselves, we have over 1 million app downloads for our debit card program. It requires hundreds of millions of dollars of investment. So after 3-4 years of trying it, even though we've been very successful, we're having to pivot because we're just not a financial service and we're not a financial entity. There are some others doing a good job. I would say majority is doing a good job. Ocho is doing a good job. And there are a few others doing a fine job in the fintech space. Those that are doing best are doing what we started to do, which basically allow for cash deposits through Walgreens, Walmart, CVS, because that allows our community to be able to immediately get their funds into the debit card. But the situation is that big banks are still not allowing access to credit. And those fintechs that were allowing for short-term loans, most of them have gone under after the pandemic. I mean, you guys know better than most, but in the tech side, fintech is pretty much dead right now. It's been pretty difficult. So what we're doing now is like, okay, let's get out of that space and instead let's acknowledge those entities that are doing it right. Some will be big banks, some will be smaller fintechs, educate our community. And again, as we mentioned, our community is wise. They'll be able to choose what's best for them.
I think one of the big things that we've seen that a lot of folks in the Latino community is that there's this option of crypto or Bitcoin. One of the big use cases for Bitcoin and crypto is remittances. A lot of people send money back home, but whenever they're doing a wire or something like that, all the fees is eaten to what they're sending. So they're losing a big portion to the wiring companies. So a lot of folks have seen that crypto might be something that's very helpful for them in that regard, in the fintech space, right? And so I think there are some folks that are working on that, and there's been other countries, right? That now you alluded to El Salvador, right? Bukele over there is very pro Bitcoin, very pro crypto, and they're working on these big solutions to that. So I think over time, a lot of these things can work out within the area to help Latinos in this country. Have you guys thought about that or looked into any?
Yes, look, I'm not as well versed in cryptocurrency and so forth. What I do know is that it's needed, right? What we explored a little bit more was on stable coins, right? Because as you mentioned, the part of Bitcoin and everything else requires more education, requires the attention to volatility and the patience, the wallet. We need to educate our community on that. I know that they're going to be fast adopters. We adopt technology very fast, but if we can do our part and educate them, I think, especially in terms of remittances, could be life-saving to places with a lot of economic turmoil. I mean, my wife is from Uruguay. I was just in Argentina a few months ago, and their peso just keeps losing value. Well, if they had been able to get that remittance in a stable coin or even in any type of cryptocurrency, they would have been better off. I'm talking about the poorest of the households, right? Same thing in Venezuela. Mexico, very interesting. Over the last 6 years, actually, the peso has gained strength against the dollar.
The super peso, they call it. Right?
Yes, right. But at the end of the day, that's my point. Yes, in terms of remittances, I think a crypto solution, stable coin, it could add a lot of value. And I know there are some players already, poking around to see what's going to work. But I think, what do we do to educate our community so they can be quick adopters of this technology with a lot of intent?
It is sometimes even kind of sad. Like, imagine if you're like in Zimbabwe will you prefer to have your savings in Zimbabwe or in Dogecoin? Which Dogecoin was a meme
of course.
crypto, right? I personally, I prefer Dogecoin, right? So
It's a nice logo, though. It's a nice logo.
yeah. So I wanted to explore a little bit more what you said that we are fast adopters. What makes you think? I mean, you have a nice database of
Yes.
within your company of 4 million users, so
Yes.
you can back up that statement. What make you think that we are fast adopters?
Yeah, so when we started collecting, we go through the most military grade security to make sure that all database is as protected as possible within AWS and so forth. But when we started, most people just had not smartphones. Now, 98% of our 4.3 plus million registered users have a smartphone. Now, it has been shifting. It used to be 80% Android, 18% Apple, and then like 2% BlackBerry or something like that, right? But now the iPhones are starting to catch up. Now it's like 60-40. Why? It's not that they don't like iPhones, but until very recently, I'm talking about the last 3 years or so, you needed a social security number. You could only get an iPhone if you actually had a plan.
True.
Without a plan, you couldn't have an iPhone. But now you can actually do it through, you can buy your phone outright, and now you can connect it through pay as you go and still have. So we've seen a huge increase in iPhone adoption. Now, for the longest time, they couldn't download apps because to download apps, you need to have a debit card or credit card into it. I mean, things that we don't think about, right? Now, there's some applications now over the last couple of years that Apple has relaxed a little bit their policy. So now people are able to, if it's a free app, why should you have to have a debit card or a credit card in there? So you begin to see that you can actually do it. So, but to my point is that people like to have their phones. Like we can go into lower, LMI communities, right? Low to middle income communities, and we see great cars, great tech, great phones. It's the American dream, right?
You see the Mexican fellow, I think that is Mexican, that he has a Cybertruck that he designed it to actually be
his work truck, right?
His work
truck. Yes.
I will tell you, as I drive around the Cybertruck, I get the biggest smiles and the biggest thumbs up from all of the workers that are in their work trucks, Mexicanos, Latinos. They're all like in amazement. They're like, oh yeah, that's the truck that I want. And that's that. They probably seen the TikTok guy out there where he's like,
it's aspirational.
It is.
Look, man, like I that's the thing that I don't understand. And Mando, you can, testify to what I'm about to say. In Mexico or Latin America, we may be working longer hours, but towards the end of the day, I'm not talking about Friday. It can be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We're like, hey, let's go have a little drink. Hey, everybody, like we're happy people. Here, it can be a Friday. Hey, let's go out. I'm tired. I'm TGIF. I'm tired. We are aspirational people.
It was Tuesday, Monday, and Monday was like when I was in college. It's like, and even after I finished college, we will just go to. There is a chain called Sanborns.
Yes,
and it's not used anymore like it was before, but they literally was like our 24/7 sometimes, and you can stay there and just get some coffee, and we will stay there just chatting, trying to resolve humanity issues.
Yes,
with my friends. But yes, I agree.
Yes.
And then you know what, I can vouch, because when Mando and his family took us around in Mexico, I'm like, hey Mando, like, you guys are taking us everywhere. We're like going multiple restaurants a day and things like, is this okay? He's like, oh yeah, this is what we always do whenever I'm in town. We're always going here, there, driving around the city. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. We had so much fun, I'm telling you, but that's a lot of the culture. And that's what a lot of people love about, Mexicans and Latino culture also, that we're very happy, very joyful, family oriented. We like to have fun. So that's one of the things that, I had so much fun when we went to Mexico.
And also, an interesting thing there is that we're not political, to be honest. We have been in tech and all of that, but it just happens that sometimes it meets politics, because it's the amount of people that we are trying to help. It's just it meets. We were in Mexico City and we didn't know what was happening. I told Eric, hey, we should go to this restaurant called El Cardenal, which is a
Mm-hmm.
very
Mm-hmm.
famous, everybody kind of
Yes.
knows that restaurant. But I said, you know what, we need to go to this El Zócalo because obviously you can see
Right.
kind of everything there and all of that. Yeah, sure. And they were like, him and his wife, like, yeah, let's do it. We didn't do any research or anything. We just started driving from the
Showed up.
airport.
From the airport.
From the
With
airport,
with your
literally, we
luggage
just-
still?
yeah. We just were no, but that's not
Wow.
even the thing. What happened that day? It was when the rally for Claudia Sheinbaum was.
Oh
happening.
my goodness. Hundreds of thousands of people, I'm sure.
I'm not kidding. It was probably in the ranges probably of millions.
Yeah.
That moment, we saw that lady will win. Like
Yes.
we knew that she was
There's
the
so
president.
much support there. Yeah, we're like, what's going on? Who's this Sheinbaum? And it turns out, right, first female president of Mexico,
Yes.
La Presidenta. She made it several months later. So we're like, we were there.
PhD in
Amazing.
STEM, part of a group that was awarded a Nobel Prize laureate. I mean, gosh, man, it's like, yeah.
Then it's very tough because over there, middle class, they don't like her, right? They were rooting for Xochitl, and for me, that right now I'm living over here, I see a little more unbiased, right? For me, it's like, guys, it's like it's a winning, even if it's Xochitl or Claudia, independently of the ideas, right? So because we will have a female president.
Absolutely. And look, what I find into this upper middle class in Mexico, same issue that we're having in the United States, right? To the privileged, equality feels like oppression, but it is not. And what I mean by this is that, as there's been a movement of taking people out of extreme poverty into poverty and hopefully a little bit higher, and then suddenly people that have it is like they're uncomfortable. To the privileged, equality feels like oppression. When we're talking suddenly here, women getting better pay, it's like, why? Some men like, why? Gosh, guys, like, we are privileged. We need to recognize our privilege in order for us to really understand, civil rights and social movement, right? So I think that's what's happening to Mexico, but I think that it's a good chaos for a society to get rebuilt with better norms.
You were mentioning it before when we were recording on the history on some of the civil rights on LA. I think that was an interesting story how you were telling us how we moved to Texas. Could you mention that again?
Look, during the mid-90s, California was starting to veer towards the right. There was this anti-immigrant sentiment. Governor Pete Wilson, every single statewide elected official was a Republican. By the way, I don't say Republican is a bad thing because at the same time, we had a governor in Texas, George W. Bush, which was very pro-immigrant. By the way, he already had you could drive without, you could get a license without a social security number. So, but in terms of California was this center right, extreme right government, and they actually had 3 legislations. The trifecta, Proposition 187, Proposition 209, Proposition 227. And they were all about the same things that we talk about, saying if you're going to get health services or even go to school, you need to show a social security number. If you are a teacher or a nurse and you would think that they are undocumented, you need to report them. And this type of vitriol that doesn't help anything. Now, Mexico, for their own good cause, in 1996 passed a law which is named La No Pérdida de la Nacionalidad, which basically means up until that point, if a Mexican national became a citizen or naturalized citizen of the United States, they had to forfeit their Mexican nationality. And that law basically said that's no longer the case. So you saw a huge rise of permanent residents to finally file for naturalization, and you began to see the shift. Most of the offices now in California now is a very progressive state, very welcoming of immigrants. By the way, completely opposite from Abbott. In California, they have Medi-Cal instead of Medicare. They have Medi-Cal funded by the state, and everyone is eligible, regardless of national status or citizenship. And I'm telling you, it's going to help everyone, right? So, but from California, Armando, same laws went to Arizona in the early 2000s. And then they came to Texas. And then they went to Alabama and Georgia and Florida. And now they're back in Texas. It's just this fear mongering that's the part that I don't like about politics. I just always say if we educate our community and we know our history, we should feel very proud about it. And how can we contribute to this
Technology.
melting pot? How do we
It's
contribute to technology? How do we contribute to the American dream? Because I think that we're gonna make it prettier,
yeah,
right?
technology
Because
is
yeah,
an equalizer.
absolutely,
If AI,
absolutely.
we try to remove some of the biases through AI,
Hmm.
because the thing is that you have programmers as well there that they are adding biases on
Even
the
data
algorithm.
sets are biases, right? So,
Of course.
mhm.
And the reality sometimes is there is no malice. We have programs and things like that. Sometimes the data sets are not there. Like for our community, pictures of us, right, with Latin people, that sometimes they're not there, right? Like all of the information, because a lot of them they're immigrants, and we don't trust a lot of these databases, that they're gonna be like hit list for
They'll put my name
politicians,
on the
right?
list. Yeah. Well,
In the early 2000s in California, within LA, a group of us went and met with the police department through the consulate to do sensibility workshops. And what I mean is that, the judges needed to understand a little better how our community, the most humble of them, the most unprotected, usually when you're in front of an authority figure, it's looking down. It's actually a respect effort. But they were thinking, they're guilty. That's why they're not looking me in the eye. Look, they're acting guilty. So as we went through this process, judges began to understand, okay, their own bias, right, was that if someone is not looking me in the eye, that means that they are hiding something,
Yeah.
right? So yes, this is the part of education that we need to do, especially in AI. That obviously there's other variations where most likely they're putting me through one of the programs. They're going to think that I may be a terrorist or undocumented immigrant because of those biases on those data sets.
Yeah, yeah. Um, it is very interesting on how it will shape. I see a very rapid development with AI, so it's shifting very quickly. I did have the chance to meet Sam Altman. I wasn't even clueless myself about because when he mentioned it, that was bringing ChatGPT, but ChatGPT was not out, so I didn't know what he was talking about.
Oh, wow.
So, and now how it has developed, which talking about OpenAI, something very interesting this week happened. One of the founders from almost 10 years ago, he tweeted that he was switching to the other company. That was also weird. That company has been having some drama.
turmoil.
Also,
There's
they kicked
turmoil.
out
Yeah.
Sama, and now this. It's so weird. Once again, this guy was founding OpenAI and suddenly say, you know what? I'm out. Peace out. I'm going with the competitor. So very, very different things that are happening on the industry.
Yeah, so I think we talked a lot about where Welcome Tech started, how it started, the things that you guys are working on, the problems that y'all are trying to solve. What's your outlook? What's your next 5 years look like? And then we'll start wrapping up.
Yes, look, we've gone through a process where, as I mentioned, a few minutes ago, the moment you stop innovating is the moment that you start dying as a company. I think we have pivoted to a place now that we are very comfortable and that we're showing that we can actually achieve this sustainable model of fulfilling our mission, while at the same time being able to pay our bills at the end of the month and the team. So we now know that the answer lies within our 4.3 million and rising number of members, because now we actually have the power to go and negotiate better rates, better access on behalf of theirs. So our subscription program is where it's all at. It's called Poder Salud for Spanish speakers, which means health is power, and Welcome Plus for employers that choose to offer our program. Our program is very accessible. For $25, the entire household gets access to unlimited telemedicine. They can access the Aetna Dental PPO plan at discounted rates. They get access to vision and hearing discounts, and also to a prescription medication discount basis, right? So that's where we are growing. We love the fact that we don't have to put at risk our integrity, because running a fintech is extremely difficult, not because of our community, but because non-community members that are going to try to defraud you, and you end up spending more time in risk and compliance than in serving the community. So we're excited about where we're going. Welcome Tech. It will continue to evolve, but I think that with this subscription program, focus on health and health benefits and preventive health care, it's where the community is finding the most root. Because one thing that we found over the years is that the biggest need in our community, it's access to dental hygiene, both in terms of education and in terms of servicing. And the term of education is the understanding that you need to be changing the toothbrush, right, every 8 to 10 weeks, that you need to go twice a year for a dental cleaning, is something that we didn't grow up with, that culture. Many of us didn't. So that saves so many trips to the doctor, because our mouth, we don't understand how important it is. The hygiene of our teeth, it really impacts our entire body. So that's core to what we're servicing. But again, at the very top layer, it's free education, free access to questions, and that's what we're going to continue to build.
Well, Raul, very, very interesting stuff here. Really excited about the work that y'all are doing at Welcome Tech by helping connect immigrants to the services that they need. I'm so glad you took the time out to talk to us and for us to be able to share a little bit about something that's helping the community. Mondo, anything you want to add?
This is awesome. It's only a few of us that we are looking for this community. It really resonates what you guys are doing, right? Like information is power, knowledge is power, right? So, and once again, maybe we'll do a second episode.
Maybe we can do it live here from our offices in San Antonio. As you know, we have a small but mighty bar as well, and or we can do it with coffee.
We can do it with the Apple Museum.
Yes, of course.
Just for the community, before we were recording, Raul was kind to show us around kind of virtually on the office, and he said they have an Apple Museum, and he meant it, and it was real. Like he had like an old Apple, the first iPad and all of that. So it will be cool to see it. Maybe we can take a screenshot, send us a photo. Raul,
of course, with pleasure. With pleasure. I'll send that to you, and I look forward to learning more about your AI company as well, because we're just going in there, and that's where I think Latinos we need to stick together, because we go into areas that we're not the experts, but we need to find those experts to help us prevent those flaws of development. Because if I go to someone that doesn't understand my community, we will fail. They're just not going to be able to find those spots, like Eric was saying, right? Like those data sets are so important. So I look forward to hosting you guys here in San Antonio. It would be great.
Yeah. Awesome.
Sounds good, Raul. Well, appreciate the time. For our listeners, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. We love to hear from you. Let us know what you thought about this episode. If you have any questions for Raul, drop them in the comments, and we'll get them answered. If you haven't watched our viral Bitcoin all-time high meme remix, go check it out on our channel. It's got lots of hits. I think that's all we've got for today. Dale.
Peace.